Thank you, Mr. Ho, for leaving us with some questions to think about. On that note, let me invite the entire speaker panel up on stage for a Q&A session, which will be moderated by Hannah James, a sophomore here at Yale-NUS. If you do have any questions, feel free to raise your hand, stand up, and provide your name and institution before asking your questions at one of the 2 mics placed beside the stage. Just because of time constraints, we are going to cut this Q&A panel down to 5 or 10 minutes. So if you do have a question, please do come up. And with that, speaker panel, please come up. Thank you.
Hi guys, so due to time constraints, we'll only be having about 5 to 10 minutes of questions, and there are 2 mics below on both the left and right hand sides. So if you have a question, you can just go ahead and line up, or if you cannot get there, you can just raise your hand, I'll call on you, and then I'll repeat your question after. So with that, do we have any questions? Okay, well, I'll start it off first. Thank you all so much for coming today and taking time out of your day to join us. The first question I have is for Mr. Ho. So you just made the distinction between the 2 types of eco-cities. But what about smart cities? Is there a difference between a smart city and an eco-city?
I think that's a great question. I think that goes back to the fundamental point. I think, again, what exactly is a smart city? I suppose in my years running around, smart city is something you make use of technology to make it smarter. And whilst you make it smarter, then again, you're asking yourself the question, why do you have to make it smarter? There are all kinds of technologies out there that boost efficiencies, that helps you streamline your infrastructure, your traffic flow, and so on and so forth. And at the end of it all, you're actually trying to achieve a goal. And a goal, as mentioned earlier by one of the speakers as well, is to make the city more efficient. But again, you have to take one step back. Is this city going to work? You can have a very efficient city, a very green city, a very eco city, but if nobody wants to live there because they can't find employment, or no businesses want to invest in that city because they don't see that they can make a profit, then perhaps the city is not going to be sustainable in the long run. So having a smart or the eco city might not necessarily translate into a sustainable city.
The floor, are there any questions? Yes, in the back. If you could state your name, your institution, and then finally your question.
Okay, hi, my name is Song Lin. I'm from Bachelor of Environmental Studies program in AUS. So I have 2 questions. The first question is for Dr. Kearns. You talk about the capacity in the housing unit to grow with the population in the tropical town model. So my question is, how about the infrastructure, like roads and public transportation system? Do they have the capacity to grow with the population as well? My second question is for those panelists with experience in Tianjin Eco-City. I want to know specifically that whether there is any ecological baseline studies and research conducted before the plan was formulated. Yeah, thank you.
So this is not a kind of exclusive either or. What the model that I was talking about is really a kind of decentralized system. And one of the great failures, if you don't have enough, if the economy is not strong enough, you can't deliver centralized infrastructures, roads, electricity systems, proper sewage systems, and so on. So if you can't do that, then one possibility, of course, is to improve the economy and then do it when you can afford it. But that's not happening. Many parts of the world, in fact, are urbanizing regardless. So another approach is to decentralize the infrastructure. And that's becoming more and more technically possible. In other words, people can generate energy locally, they can gather water, they can clean it, they can manage waste locally. Transportation is more complex, it's true. But again, there are emergent modes of mobility and transportation that in fact are infrastructure light. In other words, you don't have to build a giant freeway to move certain goods and people around in certain kinds of neighborhoods. So it's a really nice question. The answer is yes, but in some urbanization scenarios, we have to really investigate the possibilities of decentralization. And that means we're not building very, very heavy, dense and expensive infrastructures to make that kind of urbanization happen.
Thanks for asking this question about ecological baseline study. Indeed, it has been done quite comprehensively in the early stage of planning to find out what are the type of the species, even vegetation has existed there before. There was a very comprehensive record of the migratory birds, flowers, and so on, even the soil condition that conducted over there. It has a very tall targets to try to restore all this environment. So in terms of implementation, it was agreed that the Tianjin Eco-City has to at least restore some of this. For example, the land was a wasteland due to the prior activities. So the soil condition was treated such that it encouraged growth of local plants. And some of those areas that used to be a wastewater retention pond was rehabilitated. And all this costs a lot of money. Indeed, what Stephen has said, who is going to pick up the bill? So basically, eco-city need not to be an expensive city, but it takes long-term visions to make sure that it happens and it can be rehabilitated, or at least there is no further pollution done to this particular area. So that is the overall concept. Now, the target or the idea of a building eco-city, for most of us, we have to avoid this, that we're not going to build a cities that look eco, just like a lot of rendering that are shown by Stephen. Those are things that are seriously not eco. The eco city is one that you look very ordinary, that you live a very simple, efficient, energy-efficient life. In fact, we should all advocate that most of the eco-cities should adopt, we call it passive building standard, whereby you don't use a lot of energies to modify your microenvironment in your indoor system. And use a lot of natural lights, natural ventilation. And actually, in most of the urban living, we use a lot of energy in two things. One is transportation. Second is the building system itself. So if we can get it right in these two systems, we sort of meet halfway the eco-city development. And as I say, when we look at the dynamic equation, you have to look into your future lifestyle. And you got to think of what the future lifestyle of people is all about. Are we going to have work, live in a separate area, duplicating the space, or are we going to integrate all this into one space? So the change of lifestyle will be one key consideration in looking into the future way of living. So I hope you can get some idea about this. Thanks.
I just want to add on a little bit. I obviously, as a consultant, did not have the benefit of conducting the baseline studies, but Mr. Lim has given a very comprehensive explanation. Well, there are some, there was this practical example because Tianjin Eco-City was built on marshland where the salt or alkaline content was very, very high. So as CBRE, we were the brokers for Keppel Land's project, residential project. So we have our sales gallery with all the lovely plants and all that. But I remembered that we had to change the plants very regularly because they were all dying or they were dead due to the high alkaline content in the soil. But I strongly believe that, of course, in the good hands of both governments, the fact that there are very regular, even quarterly visits, whether from Singapore to Tianjin and vice versa, all these strict KPIs have been adhered to very, very well. So that's one of the practical challenges that we faced. So we didn't want to have viewers come to the sales gallery, view our show flats and see dead plants lying around. So we definitely had to change the plants on a regular basis, and this adds up to the cost as a developer. So that was one thing. But of course, like it being the outdoors, the wetlands, the sanctuary, the natural sanctuaries and all that, and especially in China where you have 4 seasons. So then again, the logical way would be you don't do your studies at a certain point in time, but you have to do it across the seasons because then even in Singapore, we do have migratory birds coming in at different times of the year. So then again, this is where whether you're a plant or you're an animal, whatever, all these behavioral characteristics will definitely take time, more so in a challenging climate where you have 4 seasons and not just 1 season like in Singapore. Thank you.
Hi, I'm from Yale-NUS College, and this question is directed to all the members on the panel. So Professor Chen Kang introduced the hukou system to our participants and its relationship with the Chinese urbanization. So based on the experience that you have in China, how important do you think is the social demographic aspect of, say, like things like household registration policies? For example, are there sort of challenges in terms of changing the household registration when you develop a new area or new city in China? And where are the residents that are currently living in these new cities coming from? Are they farmers, or are they moving from like other parts of the city or in the nearby region? And what happens to the farmers whose land may get expropriated when the new developments are being conducted? Thank you.
The real-life example of how people move around, move in and out of the particular new area is primarily a job opportunity, that's for sure. Well, because fundamentally, people live in a place whereby they can survive economically. And creating a conducive environment, better environment, is to attract more talented people. So there is always this gap of awareness in terms of developing a new city, particularly. As I mentioned just now in my some of my slides, there is always a struggle between local residents and the migratory workers, or we call it the new residents. It's always the case that these two types of residents can't coexist initially. They come from a different background. A job seeker coming to a new city, they bring along their lifestyle. When they bring along a lifestyle, they are going to change the way that the local resident is going to live. In fact, that creates the first-tier conflicts. So this takes a lot of time and effort, not just policy, but also social activities to immerse the differences in culture. And I don't think that we have an immediate solution for that. Even in Singapore, it takes years and generations to merge the lifestyle. The one key thing is about how then you can create an open social system whereby you have a more inclusive social system that are allowing the rural peoples to quickly accept the lifestyle urban system. Because if you are a rural resident, you're so used to open space. You're so used to different kind of a living condition, right? Whereby urban citizen residents used to have a more compressed space, compacted space. So just because of that, you are already having a big problem to put them together. So in China, the reason of having a hukou system, I think Professor Chen Kang has explained already, is more about affordability of how to take care of the social system or social benefit of a two type of citizen. So I think this is not an immediate solution, but the starting point is whether or not the society become more open and inclusive.
Just to add to the answer to the question about what happened to the farmer whose land were taken away, well, it depends on where do you live. I think in some area it's a good news to the farmers. Usually they were compensated by 2 apartments, one for their own to live, another to rent out for a fixed income. But for some other area, I think the land were taken out with a very little compensation. I think recently there's a event in Shandong, Linyi city. Basically, farmers thought that the compensation was too little and they refused to leave. And it led to a disaster, actually, a tragedy, actually. In this case, some people die by, burn themselves. Yeah. So it depends on the situation. It depends on the local government also.
Fair compensation is one big topic because most of the local government may not have the starting capital to contribute to that compensation. So I think in China they start to have this system whereby there is a co-benefit of land improvement value, and in many countries they also start to do that, meaning that the existing landowner probably benefit from a certain improvement of the land value. That system is complex, but that system will be perceived as more fair to all the stakeholders.
Maybe I'll just add a concluding remark to that. I think the hukou policy is not really the main issue. That it's not really the axe to grind because regardless of the status of the hukou policy, its advantages and breakbacks or disadvantages, the urban demographics, whether it's Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, or even Chengdu, has been such that you have seen a lot more populace in these more popular cities. Regardless of the hukou, I had staff who came from, it's actually a mini United Nations in the China version. So when I was in Chengdu office, my staff were from various surrounding cities in southwest China. One even followed me from Shanghai. And even in Shanghai itself, it's not just local Shanghainese, but it was Chinese from everywhere. Same went for Tianjin, so it was not all Tianjinese or Tianjiners, as I call them, but they came from all parts of China. So regardless of the hukou system, people still went, maybe because to the cities for jobs. I would like to challenge all of you, even my fellow panel speakers, that why do we need to create a new city out of nowhere? Do we really need that? Because as it is in the existing cities, whether it's a traditional CBD or the emerging CBD, you already have your catchment, your population. So maybe again, growing up in Singapore, we didn't have to like unearth, one big patch of land, and we didn't have to like bump off, a particular part of the island. But as we developed, as we went through the regeneration, we incorporated all the improved facilities, whether it's your open net, whether it's better water filtration system, whatever it is. So again, my own perspective is that we can circumvent or we can live with the existing hukou policy in China, but instead of like uprooting everyone, getting rid of the farmers, and building something from Mission Impossible, why don't we just do it in the existing places? Thank you.
I think it's widely known now that wherever you have huge disparities in wealth right next to each other, no amount of regulation is going to manage that. And we can just look at Europe right now. You can think about the massive waves of migration into Central Europe. So no matter how well those borders are policed, no matter how much the regulation is in place, if you don't have development in a way to avoid these massive disparities in wealth, then I think that's one of the kind of central points. I think this point's already been made on the panel, but if you think about, there are other amazing examples on the border of the United States and Mexico. If you think about El Paso and Juarez, or San Diego and Tijuana, these are kind of really failed urban conditions because there is such a huge step in wealth across that national border. So no amount of regulation can work there. So as urbanists and planners, our approach has to be think about this kind of broader question about the relationship between cities and their hinterlands. And I think this applies at a more abstract level, but I think it's a general principle that we need to think about, particularly when you're thinking about particular case studies that you're going to be working on.